Welcome to this explainer. Forget the cliché image of a lucky, rugged miner panning for nuggets in a freezing creek. Today, we're reframing the Klondike gold rush. The truth is, it was actually a mind-blowing macroeconomic stimulus event, totally driven by brilliant marketing and extreme supply chains. The real story isn't just about pulling gold from the dirt, it's about following the money.
To really grasp the sheer scale of this mania, picture this. It's July 1897. Two steamships pull into West Coast ports, carrying a literal ton of gold directly from Bonanza Creek in Canada's Yukon Territory. A literal ton. As you can imagine, seeing that much raw wealth hit the docks instantly triggered a massive stampede. Over 100,000 prospectors just dropped everything they were doing and bolted north to seek their fortune.
Ending the 1893 panic. Now, to understand why so many people were willing to risk their lives in the freezing wilderness, we have to zoom out and look at the severe economic depression of the late 1890s. The crucial point here is that this stampede wasn't just fueled by individual greed, it was about survival. The world was suffering from something called gold standard deflation. At the time, international paper currency was strictly backed by physical gold, but there was a massive global shortage of it. This created a dire liquidity crisis. We're talking severe monetary deflation, terrifying bank panics, and cripplingly high unemployment following the Panic of 1893. People were desperate for a way out of an economic collapse. So when that single ton of gold, and everything that followed, hit the market, the macro impact was staggering. Tens of millions of dollars in raw gold pulled from the Yukon acted as a massive, completely unexpected liquidity injection. It flushed straight into the financial system, stabilized terrified banks, and essentially kick-started the economic recovery across all of North America. It was literally like a giant stimulus package handed directly to the economy by Mother Nature.
Seattle, gateway to wealth. Let's pivot slightly and look at who actually got rich during this recovery. Spoiler alert, we're shifting our focus from the frozen gold fields of the Yukon down to the merchants of the Pacific Northwest.
For a stampeder, getting to the gold was a brutal three-step process. Thanks to an absolute masterclass in marketing by a guy named Erastus Brainerd for the Seattle Chamber of Commerce, Seattle successfully positioned itself as the singular gateway to the gold fields. Stampeders flooded in because they had to comply with a very strict Canadian law. To cross the border, every single prospector had to carry one full year's worth of food, tools, and heavy winter gear. That's 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of supplies per person, and somebody had to sell it to them. You can see how this mandatory outfitting requirement caused a total retail explosion. Between 1897 and 1898 alone, Seattle merchants sold over $25 million in goods to these desperate miners. And keep in mind, that is 1890s money. It was an absolute windfall for anyone selling tents, axes, beans, and boots. The real wealth wasn't buried in the ground. It was ringing up in the cash registers of the outfitting hubs. This intense demand actually built a lot of the retail landscape we know today. Local businesses rapidly expanded to meet the crushing needs of the stampeders. Shipbuilders, hardware mercantiles, hotel chains, they all exploded. In fact, legendary modern brands like Filson and Nordstrom got their exact origins right here, catering to miners who needed insanely durable goods to survive the Yukon. They realized early on that you don't need to mine the gold if you can supply the miners. Commerce on this scale fundamentally rewired the city's demographics. Look at these numbers. In 1900, Seattle had 80,000 residents. By 1910, that population had tripled to 240,000. This massive boom allowed Seattle to completely eclipse regional rivals like Portland and Tacoma, cementing its place as the undeniable powerhouse metropolis of the Pacific Northwest.
Building the Alaskan frontier. This staggering supply chain demand didn't just put Seattle on the map, it permanently transformed the physical infrastructure of Alaska itself.
To handle all that cargo we just talked about, coastal Alaskan settlements expanded almost overnight. Quiet little wilderness outposts like Skagway and Dia transformed in the blink of an eye into sprawling, chaotic transit cities. They threw up brand new docks, rail lines, massive hotels, and of course, plenty of saloons, all built at lightning speed to handle the unbelievable flood of human and heavy freight heading north. Moving thousands of tons of cargo over treacherous mountain passes was a logistical nightmare, but it drove incredible innovation. The intense demand spurred major engineering feats, most notably the construction of the White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad in 1898. Once that heavy infrastructure was in place, prospectors could push even further into Alaska's rivers and trails. This directly enabled massive spillover gold discoveries on U.S. soil, like Nome in 1899 and Fairbanks in 1902, proving once and for all that Alaska's economic value was absolutely massive. Demographic and political integration. As the frantic gold rush inevitably slowed down, we're left with the profound, long-term impact of the people who stayed behind to shape the region.
While thousands of disappointed prospectors went home empty-handed, tens of thousands actually stayed. But they didn't stay as miners. They integrated into a brand new economy, becoming loggers, bankers, civic leaders, and salmon cannery workers. This sudden, permanent population explosion forced the United States Congress to act, passing the Civil Code of 1900. This crucial legislation established formal legal courts, tax structures, and municipal governance, laying the absolute critical groundwork that set Alaska firmly on its long path toward 1959 statehood.
It's an incredible chain of macroeconomic events. And the coolest part is you can actually trace this exact urban and transit history yourself today. The legacy of this massive logistics boom is preserved at the Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Parks, which you can visit up in Skagway, Alaska, and right down in Seattle's Pioneer Square to see the real engines behind the rush. So, considering very few miners actually struck it rich in the Yukon, while massive generational wealth was captured by the merchants, steamship operators, and supply chain managers back in the Pacific Northwest, you have to ask yourself a question. In the next great economic rush, whether that's AI, green tech, or whatever comes next, will you be out there desperately digging for gold, or will you be the one selling the shovels? Thanks for learning with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.